This is my first video update coming to you from a rainy Nicosia, Cyprus on this Sunday morning. Let's talk about some news. And this will be a quick video because, to be quite honest, we have a calm day, a calm before the storm, I would say, with regards to the news flow. But a lot of stuff seems to be in preparation. That's the way I'm kind of seeing today. A lot of stuff is being prepared. And yesterday, we had the Ukraine forces in the Kherson direction try to make a big push towards Kherson city. I've read reports of around 30,000 Ukrainian troops in that area trying to advance down south to cut off Russian troops and then to try and make their way towards the city of Kherson. I've also read exaggerated reports saying something along the lines of 60,000 troops, but I don't believe that. I think it's a little too much. But we had this push by the Ukraine military. It failed. It was repelled by the Russian military. Russia does have a significant troop presence in Kherson, and this offensive was beaten back. But Ukraine is realizing, the Ukraine military, they realize that they have maybe 2 weeks at best to try and make something happen in the southern direction. And that means Zaporozhye or Kherson City, trying to get a big win in the southern direction, because with each passing day, the weather conditions change. It makes it more difficult for Ukraine to push forward. And of course, you have more Russian troops from the mobilization coming into the area and providing additional support and manpower. And so in the next couple of weeks, what remains of October, we're going to probably see Ukraine making what will be their final real big play with regards to the Kherson region, at least for the winter. And then we're going to see Russia's counter moves. So that is what happened on the ground, in summary, over the past couple of days. And today things have been relatively quiet. Since the Russians repelled this attack, things have been kind of, very, very low level so far. But we did get reports in the morning from various foreign ministries urging their citizens to get out of Ukraine, evacuate Ukraine ASAP. Now, if these announcements, if these warnings were being made by the U.S. State Department or any other countries in the collective West, EU member states, I would just kind of brush these statements off, because over the past 7-8 months, all we've been hearing from the collective West is get out of Ukraine. Okay, now you can go back to Ukraine. Get out of Ukraine. Now you can go back. The embassy's going to leave. Now we're going to bring back the embassy to Kiev. We've heard them go back and forth over the past 8 months with regards to entering Ukraine or leaving Ukraine. But these announcements, these warnings, did not come from the collective West. Today, the warning came from Egypt, from the Egyptian Foreign Ministry. Yesterday, the warning came from China and the Chinese Foreign Ministry. And throughout the week, we've had warnings from former Soviet republics, CIS countries, telling their citizens to get out of Ukraine. I believe a couple of weeks ago, Serbia told their citizens to evacuate Ukraine. So instead of the collective West issuing these warnings, we are now seeing countries friendly to Russia or allied with Russia telling their citizens to get out. And this means something. These countries know something, or they've been told something, and they're now telling their citizens, get out now. Take the next week or two to gather your stuff and leave, because something is going to happen. And that something's going to probably happen in November. You take a look at the timing and see how everything is progressing. The midterms coming up, the troop movement in Belarus, Putin's statements, the various statements that Putin has been making over the past couple of weeks, the the push by the Ukraine military to try and do something to make some sort of progress in the south of the region, and the wrapping up of the mobilization. And it's clear that in the next couple of weeks, something is going to take place. I don't want to say clear. I don't want to predict anything, but you look at the timing and all the moves that are being made, and now you're getting these warnings. And in my opinion, something is going to happen in the next 2 to 4 weeks in that kind of time frame. And I think it lines up with much of what's going on in the U.S., specifically the midterm elections. And of course, you always have the deteriorating situation, the economic situation in Europe, which is getting worse and worse with each day. I believe in Rome yesterday they had protests against NATO and the EU funding of the conflict in Ukraine and the sanctions and stuff like that. So with each passing day, with each passing week, you're seeing more and more protests break out in the European Union. You also see with each passing day the UK political system collapse. Yesterday was Kwasi Kwarteng. Next week, Liz Truss. So, every day things are changing. I mean, like radically changing. And in the next 2 to 3 weeks, it's going to be a very different situation. And that may be when Russia decides to make their move. I don't know. Maybe they don't do anything. Maybe nothing happens. But you also had the missile strikes and the Russians hitting the electric grid, the electric infrastructure of Ukraine. All of these things point to something. All of these things point to something. Anyway, you guys know what I mean. So check out this map that I'm going to put up on the screen here. Now, this map of Ukraine is from a Polish expert, a Polish geopolitical expert, Marek Galash. And he was giving an interview with Dziennik Policzyzny. And he said, when the war in Ukraine ends, many of its citizens will no longer want to return to their homeland, but will prefer to stay in Poland. In this case, we will be forced to live in a bi-ethnic state where Ukrainians will be a significant potential force of political and social influence. In this case, the only good solution is the introduction of a kind of cultural autonomy, the expert said. I think this is an interesting point because we always talk about the west of Ukraine and what's going to happen in the west of Ukraine if Russia does push further west towards Odessa. Say they push further southwest all the way to Odessa. Let's just say that happens. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but let's just say that Russia does push west. The thinking is that Poland will move in will find a way to move in to take the area of Lviv, the region there. But I think this geopolitical, this expert from Poland brings up an interesting point that this could very well be the future map of Kiev. But for Poland, this poses a lot of various problems and risks, especially on the integration of these areas into Poland, the societal problems that this will cause, but also the political, because if Poland does decide to make this map come true, let's just say this is the map that we see come to fruition, then that means that you are going to have a significant political force integrated into the Polish system, and that's going to cause all kinds of different troubles and different issues. So I thought I would put this map up there because it's coming from an expert in Poland, and I think it gives a good insight as to some of the risks and the problems that Poland may have if it does actually decide to make a move in the Lviv region. And if the situation in Ukraine does deteriorate and things get really bad, that is what we could be seeing. That may be one of the reasons why you have this troop buildup in Belarus. I mean, one of the reasons could be that the Russian military is indeed looking to make a move towards Kiev, but another reason could be to send a message to Poland. That could be one of the reasons. And a further reason could be to keep the Ukraine military in Kiev occupied. Actually, that's definitely one of the reasons that you have this troop buildup. You have the troops there in Belarus, and they may not do anything. They just may be stationed there. The Russian troops just may be sitting there, but just their presence is enough to keep the Ukraine military on guard and enough to keep them occupied. So over the next few weeks, maybe the next few months, we've got to keep an eye out on the situation in Belarus and in the west of Ukraine. And that is if, and all of this that I'm talking about is if Ukraine is unable to mount a successful offensive in the south. If they can't do that, and the window closes as far as their ability to do that, and then Russia does manage to make their moves towards the west of Ukraine. So I thought I would bring that up. I thought it was an interesting map, an interesting commentary. We always think about, just the military coming in and taking territory, but there's a lot more to it than that. There's issues that you have to think about with regards to the economy, the integration into society, and of course the political implications. People are going to be voting in these regions. They're going to be part of the political process, and that's significant. That changes things in a country. So with that being said, let's do one more story. Let's talk about one more quick story, which is related to what's going on in Ukraine, and it was a Washington Post article. And let me read you the actual title of this article that came out. I believe it came out on Friday. It has the title, "As Morale Suffers, Russia and Ukraine Fight a War of Mental Attrition." Now, the reason I bring up this article is not because of what the Washington Post says about Russia and the Russian military. In the article, they say that the Russian military is depleted, morale is low, things are going bad, they're suffering heavy losses. Okay, we've heard this all before from the Washington Post. But what they say about the Ukraine military, well, that was a first. For me, that was a first. Reading the Washington Post talking about how the Ukraine military is depleted, their morale is low, and things are not going well. Basically, the Washington Post had ran interviews with various Ukrainian soldiers on the front lines. And they say that they've been fighting there for 8 months. They have no idea how long they're going to stay there, when they're going to be rotated out. They have no idea how long the conflict's going to go on for. They say that they've read reports. They know all about Russia's mobilization. This is what the Ukraine soldiers are saying. They know all about Russia's mobilization. And that has kind of hit their morale as well, because they now understand that fresh troops are going to be moving into the area while they're stuck there. And they're also very well aware that Russia has been rotating troops in the area over the past 7-8 months. So they know that the professional Russian soldiers, they've actually been able to go home, to rest, to see their families, and then to come back again, while the Ukrainian soldiers were telling the Washington Post that they haven't been able to do such a thing. They've been stuck there. And they're wondering, when is this going to end? When do I get to go home? And their morale is plummeting. And I thought this was interesting to read this from the Washington Post. So I just wanted to relay this story to everybody. I'll put a link to this down below, an archived link to this article so you can read it. It's a fascinating admission from the Washington Post that Ukraine's military is starting to fade away. That's what they're signaling. They're sounding the alarm bells. They're saying, guys, things are not looking good for the Ukraine military. They're starting to get very tired of this war. With that being said, let's do a super duper quick clown world. And I'm just going to post a photo on the screen right now. This was sent to me from a user on Telegram. And this photo says the price of anti-Russian sanctions for Europe. The cost of 1 cubic meter of firewood in Italy is 350 euros. 350 euros. That is the cost of sanctions. You know, there were protests in Rome this weekend. I think yesterday, actually, on Saturday or Friday. There were protests in Rome against NATO, against the European Union funding of the war in Ukraine and the sanctions. Timing is everything. And so with each passing week, you're going to see more and more protests in Europe. And the protests in Rome, they weren't huge, but they weren't small protests either. But I think they're going to be picking up steam with each passing week. And the colder it gets, the more protests you're going to see. Anyway, 350 euros for 1 cubic meter of firewood. That's the clown world, everybody. theduran.locals.com. Check out Alexandra's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. Duran shop. Here you go. 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.